The morning sun was barely rising over Camp Lejeune when 23-year-old Sarah Mitchell stepped off the bus. She carried a green duffel bag and deep burn scars that were impossible to ignore. Marks from a night that changed everything. At 9 years old, Sarah ran into a burning house to save her brothers. The fire took her skin, but it couldn't take her spirit. She spent years hiding from the world's cruelty until the day she walked up to a Marine recruiter and said, "I want to join." She wasn't just a girl from Georgia anymore. She was a United States Marine, ready to prove that her scars did not define her. Because true strength isn't found in the absence of scars, but in the courage to wear them. Sarah Mitchell was forged in the fire.
The first week of boot camp was designed to destroy a person and then rebuild them from scratch. The drill instructors screamed from before sunrise until long after sunset. Every recruit was pushed past their breaking point, forced to run until their legs gave out, forced to do push-ups until their arms shook like leaves in a storm. Sarah did everything they asked. She never complained, never quit, never asked for a break. Back home in Georgia, she had spent years running back roads and lifting heavy things in the garage. She had known the Marines would test her body, and she had made sure her body was ready. But the other recruits did not care about her strength. All they saw were the scars. A recruit named Thompson started calling her crispy behind her back. He thought he was funny. Reeves told her to her face that she should have stayed home, looking like a horror movie character. They suggested she was there out of pity, not merit. That accusation stung the most. On the fourth night, standing in the harsh light of the mirror, she almost broke. She thought of her brothers, Danny and Kyle. She had saved them. The price was written on her body. She told herself to stop. Crying was weakness. Crying would mean the fire had won. She whispered the words she had said since she was 9. "You are still here, they are just words." The second week brought the obstacle course. It was where everything changed for the first time. Sergeant Coleman told them they had 12 minutes. Finish in time or run it again until you collapse. Thompson finished with a smug grin. Reeves followed. They thought they had proven their superiority. Then it was Sarah's turn. She hit the first wall at full speed and pulled herself over in one fluid motion. She swung across the gap, crawled through the tight tunnel, and sprinted with everything she had. When she crossed the line, Coleman blinked. 9 minutes and 42 seconds. The fastest time in the class. The entire group went silent. It was the silence of people who had just seen something they couldn't explain. Coleman didn't hand out compliments, but he gave a small nod. It meant she was finally seen as a Marine. A recruit named Jackson sat with her at lunch. For the first time, someone treated her like a person. But Thompson and Reeves got worse. Bruised egos in this environment are dangerous things. A real mission was coming. They were about to find out exactly what Sarah Mitchell's soul was made of.
13 weeks of hell. Sarah Mitchell didn't just survive boot camp, she conquered it. Top 5 of her recruit class. The highest female scores and third highest overall, behind only the Giants. On graduation day, standing in formation, she felt something new. For the first time, she belonged. The uniform was her shield. High collars and long sleeves hiding the history of her pain. Only the left side of her face bore the mark. Standing there, she didn't care. She had earned this. Her mother, Linda, watched from the bleachers, tears flowing after a 12-hour drive in a failing Honda. A mother's embrace, tight enough to crack ribs. "You did it, baby, you really did it." A small moment of softness, then a steel-eyed promise. "This is just the beginning, Mama." Camp Lejeune, 2nd Marine Division. Infantry support. A rare and unusual place for a woman at that time. Doubts echoed in the chain of command, but Sarah's performance drowned out every whisper. The veterans looked at her scars and saw nothing. They'd seen far worse in the smoke of an IED. To them, she was simply a Marine. In the infantry, that was the only currency that mattered. But the young recruits played juvenile games. Peters and Walsh, hiding their insecurities behind cruel jokes. Burn wards and heat. Sarah ignored the noise. She focused on her duty and nothing else. Captain Robert Chen, fair, firm, and legendary for his absolute intolerance of nonsense. He didn't look at her face, he looked at her file. "I care what you can do. Can you do the job?" On the range, Sarah was a natural. Steady hands, absolute focus, a ghost with a rifle. The best natural shooter in 15 years. A silent note made in a commander's file. Then came the mock village, A hostage rescue mission. Real smoke, real chaos, real pressure. Peters froze, overwhelmed by the noise. Sarah didn't mock him or point out the irony. She grabbed his shoulder. "Stay behind me, cover the left." Leadership is not words, it's action. That night, a quiet apology. Shame meeting respect. The jokes finally died, replaced by the weight of the mission. Now, the horizon is dark. Deployment orders have arrived, into the fire.
The orders came on a Tuesday. Captain Chen told them they were heading to Helmand, one of the most dangerous places on Earth. While others felt fear, Sarah Mitchell felt a windless calm. She knew the edge of death. Her only fear was letting her team down. That dedication earned her a spot in a special reconnaissance element operating ahead of the main force. Led by Marcus Cole, the team was a collection of specialists. Cole didn't care about her scars. He cared if she could shoot straight and had his back when things went sideways. The night before they left, Sarah wrote a letter she hoped her brothers would never read. She had been preparing for this fire her entire life. Every scar was proof of what she would do for those she loved. As they boarded, Cole told her never to be ashamed of those scars. Sarah Mitchell was walking back into the fire, and this time, she was going to save more than just 2 boys.
Afghanistan was a land of extremes, ancient mountains and air that tasted of sand. Sarah had seen the maps, but nothing prepared her for this. Deep in Helmand province, on the outskirts of Sangin, she was on a reconnaissance mission. A look and listen operation where every step was a gamble with death. Then she saw it. In a central courtyard, a group of children, none older than 10, were sitting in a circle. They weren't being threatened, they were being taught. A man was showing them how to hold a weapon, how to pull a trigger, turning children into instruments of war. In that moment, something inside Sarah hardened. She knew what it felt like to have no one come to save you. Her mission shifted from observation to redemption. She couldn't look away. That night she made a promise. She would walk through fire one more time, and this time she was saving as many as she could carry. In the shadows of Sangin, the true mission had only just begun.
The mission to Karezi Saidi was one of intense preparation and zero room for error. Confirm positions, extract the children, and survive. Cole laid out the approach. A deep, dry riverbed for cover, moving in at 0200 hours under a moonless sky. They moved like ghosts. Darkness was absolute. Turner scanned the village, counting 31 fighters. Reinforcements had arrived. Sarah reached the compound. Inside, 8 children waited. She whispered, "Do not be afraid." Recognition passed between them. Survivors of fire. Then, a flashlight beam cut the darkness. A patrol. Sarah gave the order. "Take the children. Go." She stepped into the light alone. The fighter froze at the sight of her scars. That second was enough. 8 seconds. No alarm. No shots fired. The package was moving. By dawn, they were clear. Sarah felt something she hadn't in a long time. Joy. She had walked into the fire and brought everyone out alive. The children were taken to an aid station. They ate with a frantic urgency, as if afraid the food would vanish. Before they finished, Sarah watched from a distance. She wanted to promise them safety, but in a place like this, the next day was never guaranteed. She turned back to her quarters. The main assault on Karezi Saidi was hours away. There was still preparation to be done. At 0500, the assault began. 200 Marines moved on the village from 3 directions, supported by air and armor. Sarah's voice cut through the chaos of battle. Calm and precise, it became a lifeline for the men moving through the storm. The fighting was fierce. The Taliban fought desperately from prepared positions. The Marines advanced step by step, alley by alley. Sergeant Cole would later say that in that chaos, Sarah's voice was the only calm point in a storm of noise and violence. 3 hours in, the advance stalled at the Northern Command building. The resistance there was fierce, slowing progress to a crawl. An RPG exploded near Captain Chen's position. He went down hard, shrapnel tearing into his arm and side. Kim was there instantly, treating the wounds. Sarah heard the call 50 meters ahead. She felt a cold grip on her heart. With Chen out, command fell to a young lieutenant. But he was overwhelmed, his orders confused. The advance began to stall. Sergeant Cole stepped in. "Let Mitchell coordinate," he suggested. Foster looked at Sarah, saw the fire in her eyes, and nodded. Sarah took the radio and stepped into the role she had prepared for her entire life. She began issuing orders with absolute clarity. She redirected the flanking element and coordinated air support with surgical precision. The Marines suddenly had direction once more. Within 90 minutes, the command building was cleared. Kareze Saidi was free for the first time in months. The cost was real. 4 wounded and 1 young Marine, Private Williams, killed by a sniper. He was only 20 years old. Sarah didn't know him, but she knew his name. She carried it with her from that day forward, a weight she would never set down. An old woman approached her, touching her scars with gentle fingers. She said Sarah carried the marks of fire. She says in her culture, that means God has tested you and found you worthy. For the first time, Sarah didn't flinch. In that moment, the wall Sarah had built inside herself cracked. Not enough to crumble, but enough to let a little light in. Back at base, Cole told her in front of everyone, "Mitchell, what you did today saved lives." Sarah simply nodded. That night, she thought of the children, the old woman, and Private Williams. The deployment wasn't over. There was more fire to come. "You are still here," she whispered to the darkness. Battered and tired, but still here, still breathing, still ready.
The weeks following the assault on Kareze Saidi were a grinding reality of war. Constant patrols, endless missions, a daily struggle for survival. Sarah Mitchell and her reconnaissance team moved through the valleys like ghosts, unseen and unheard, doing the quiet, dangerous work that made everything else possible. They called her Scarface. Unlike the cruel names of the past, this one was used with respect, a warrior's name given by those who understood that scars were evidence of survival. Even her loudest critics became her strongest supporters. People change. Sometimes, when shown what real strength looks like, they find the courage to find a new path. Month 4. A new mission, Mullah Rashid, a Taliban commander linked to the deaths of 17 coalition soldiers. Neutralizing him would be a significant blow. Cole briefed the team with calm intensity. The stakes were high. Rashid was a ghost himself, protected by fanatical guards in a well-defended fortress. They spent 3 days preparing, every map studied, every contingency planned. Sarah saw the compound in her mind as clearly as if she were already there. They moved out on a Thursday night, covering the final 5 kilometers on foot across flat, exposed terrain, gambling on a direction the enemy wouldn't expect. 0300. The compound was a fortress, walled, guarded, and alert. 15 armed men patrolling the grounds, their spotlights cutting through the dark. Sarah recorded every detail, the patrol timing, the lookout positions, the hidden side gate. Her intelligence was the foundation for the entire assault. 0450. Something spooked them. A dog's frantic barking alerted the guards. The element of surprise was hanging by a thread. The order was given, move now. Explosions shattered the gates. Controlled chaos erupted as the Marines surged forward into the pre-dawn shadows. The Taliban reacted with ferocity. Gunfire erupted from every direction. The air was thick with smoke, dust, and the sound of battle. Sarah was the calm in the storm. Her voice on the radio guided the teams, calling out enemy positions with a precision that amazed even the veterans. 22 minutes of fighting. 11 dead, 6 captured. Mullah Rashid was found hiding in a basement, taken alive without a scratch. Success. But it wasn't over. A reinforcement truck appeared, moving fast from the east. Sarah tracked it, alerting the Marines before it could spring an ambush. A bullet hit the wall near her. A fragment struck her head. Pain and blood followed, but she didn't miss a single beat on the radio. Duty above all. She coordinated the final moments with one hand on the handset and the other pressing a bandage to her wound. Just doing her job, she'd say. Cole told her she was something else entirely. She had done her job, and the jobs of 5 other people too. A legend was being born. The reports reached the highest levels. They spoke of flawless coordination and the calm voice that guided it all. People far above her were watching. Those reports landed on the desk of a general, a man in an office thousands of miles away who was about to change Sarah Mitchell's life forever. He saw what others hadn't, a future for Mitchell she never saw coming. Her story wasn't just survival anymore, it was about to become legend.
The deployment ended in March, 6 months after it had begun. Sarah's unit rotated back to Camp Lejeune, and the transition was jarring. One day she was lying in the dirt calling in coordinates. The next, she was standing in line at the cafeteria, choosing between chicken or pasta. People around her talked about football games and weekend plans. The contrast was like stepping from one universe into another. Sarah struggled more than she let anyone see. She did not sleep well. Every sudden noise made her flinch. She found herself scanning rooms and parking lots for threats that were not there. The ghosts of Afghanistan followed her home. She had nightmares about the village, about the children, and the fighter with the flashlight walking toward her in the dark. She dreamed about Private Williams. In her dreams, he was always asking her a question, but she could never hear the words. Cole noticed. He didn't say anything directly, but he made a point of checking on her regularly. He knew that asking wouldn't help. He would stop by her quarters or invite her to the gym. He just made sure she knew she was not alone. The team had become a family, bonded by experiences that most people will never understand. 2 months later, Sarah received a notice. Captain Chen had written a detailed recommendation for her performance. It cited her leadership, the rescue of the 8 children, and her critical role in the capture of Mullah Rashid. She assumed it would be a unit citation. She did not expect what came next. She was informed she would receive the Navy Cross. The Navy Cross is the second highest military decoration for extraordinary heroism in combat. It is rare. It is prestigious. It was being given to the girl from Dalton, Georgia, who had been told her whole life she was too damaged to amount to anything. Sarah spent the morning preparing her uniform with meticulous care. Every ribbon was in perfect alignment. She looked at her scars. This time, she didn't feel shame. She felt like those scars were part of the uniform, her most important medal. The ceremony was held on the parade ground. The entire battalion was assembled, over 500 Marines standing at attention. Cole was there. Captain Chen was there. Even those who once looked at her with disgust now watched with admiration. At exactly 1000 hours, General James Thornton arrived. He was a legend, a face like it was carved from granite. The general walked to the podium. Then his eyes found Sarah. He stopped. He did not begin his speech. He just stared. The silence lasted for nearly 10 seconds. It felt like an eternity. Sarah didn't flinch. She stood her ground. She always did. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper, yet it carried like thunder. He said, "I know those scars."
The entire parade ground was frozen. 500 Marines stood in absolute stillness. General Thornton's words hung in the warm Carolina air like something solid. Corporal Sarah Mitchell stood at attention. She had spent a lifetime learning how to keep her pain behind a mask, and that mask held even now. General Thornton stepped out and walked directly toward her. Up close, his sharp blue eyes were shining with something deep and powerful. He told them a story. 23 years ago, he was a young colonel driving home late on a January night when he saw the glow of a fire. A house was engulfed in flames. Neighbors were screaming. A woman was on the ground, hysterical, crying that her children were still inside. Then the back door burst open. A 9-year-old girl, her body on fire, stumbled out, dragging her 2 little brothers to safety. Thornton was the one who ran to her. He pulled off his coat, wrapped it around her burning body, and held her until the help arrived. He rode in the ambulance with her, holding her hand the entire ride. He made a promise that night never to forget her courage. He visited her every day for a week until he was transferred. He lost contact, but he carried that night with him through wars and promotions. When he read the recommendation for Sarah Mitchell's Navy Cross and saw the fire in Dalton, Georgia, he knew. He knew who she was. The scarred Marine who saved 8 children from a Taliban compound was the same little girl he had held in his arms on a burning lawn. "I held you that night, Corporal Mitchell," he said. "I prayed that if you lived, the world would see a spirit that fire could not destroy." He pinned the Navy Cross to her uniform. Then he placed his hands on her shoulders and said, "You were never broken, Sarah. I am proud of you." The mask cracked. A single tear broke free and rolled down her scarred face. In that tear was every ounce of pain and strength she had carried. General Thornton stepped back and saluted her. A 3-star general saluting a corporal. An act of respect that defied rank. One by one, 500 hands rose to 500 foreheads. The sound was like a single heartbeat echoing through the stillness. Sarah Mitchell returned the salute, feeling her entire life rearrange itself. She was not a monster. She was a warrior, a daughter, and a survivor. Afterward, she found her mother. They held each other as General Thornton approached to finally close a circle 23 years wide. "I'm going to keep going," Sarah told Cole as they watched the sunset. "There are more fires to walk through. I am not done yet." Sarah served 12 more years, rising to Master Sergeant. She mentored those who came with their own scars, visible or invisible. The children she rescued grew up. The boy who carried his sister became a teacher. He named his first daughter after the woman who saved them. Sarah's scars never faded. They became proof that fire can take your skin, but it can never take your spirit. The strongest people are not the ones without scars, but the ones who carry them forward into the light.